We're going to waste no more time. We're going to hop into the second series of the night. It is going to be Canada versus New Zealand. Now, coming into this, when the casters were making their predictions, I went with Canada. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Sidonia. I love his attitude. I love the way he approaches the game. He's someone who's a little bit older than the average competitor we tend to see in Hearthstone, and that has allowed him to kind of run point as infrastructure on this team, right? He's someone who's making sure the deck lists are submitted, deciding who's plays what. And it's interesting because now he's going up against New Zealand, and Pathra very much occupies a similar role.
Yeah, late 20s. Really seeing a lifetime of competition between them.
I mean, in card gaming, that
just
is kind
so
of a lifetime
old
of competition.
compared to the average competitor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have to agree with you. But one thing to note here about Canada is they're very dedicated to competition. And currently, I think a few of the Canadian players are actually competing at DreamHack Valencia. And over there, it's like 3 or 4 in the morning. So definitely some hardcore gamers, to say the least. But there's some footage of lovely Canada.
Yeah.
And it's very cold up there a lot of the year, but they have some beautiful sights. Canada is one of the largest countries in the world, but much of it is uninhabited because it's just beautiful nature and water and mountains and snow and rocks and trees and grass and animals. Just wonderful.
And breakfast cereals.
And breakfast cereals.
Yep.
And maple syrup just oozing out of everything.
Fun fact, the official phone number of Canada, I looked this up, is 1-800-O-Canada.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact about New Zealand. Well, I think everybody knows this fun fact.
Yeah, it's located geographically slightly north and slightly east of Australia.
I was more thinking the Lord of the Rings thing.
Yeah,
So all the,
I was going to say I have a bit of an investment into both teams here because my wife is Canadian, but Lord of the Rings was filmed in New Zealand.
Which do you love more, your wife or Lord of the Rings? Is she watching?
My wife, 100%. But Lord of the Rings is very cool. Not as cool as my wife, but pretty cool.
But pretty cool. All right, let's go and take a look at the matchup here. Purple and Slayer Max going to be opening it up, and Purple with the Druid, not super surprising. You know, what we've seen of him in the Hearthstone Global Games is that he enjoys playing Druid. Tends to be more of a fan of the mid-range style or more of the control style. He even said, he tweeted once after losing with Aggro Druid that he's like, okay, I guess I need to learn how to play Aggro Druid. So no surprise to see him there. Slayer Max is one of the New Zealand players coming into this that we didn't actually know a ton about. You know, everyone obviously, they saw Pathra. They knew who she was, but the rest of the guys have kind of had the opportunity to develop their identities, and Slayer Max, true to the name, tends to generally bring some pretty aggressive decks.
Slays to the max. That's right.
Yeah.
I actually had a lovely interview with Flame Lord that was going to be aired on the Global Games broadcast during one of their matches. Turns out I didn't record audio. So it was just me and Flame Lord just having a conversation. All you could see on the screen when we went to edit the video was just Flame Lord and his lovely face talking, but no sound. So that interview didn't get aired. But I can assure you, he's a cool guy, and New Zealand is a cool team.
All right, you heard it from TJ. Flame Lord, cool guy. Let's go ahead and take a look at the picks, though. Purple, no surprise, going to be on the Druid. Slayer Max going to be on the Mage, and as much as Druid has kind of hit 2 major archetypes and just kind of stayed pat, Mage is just all over the place. Like, every single time you see an opening mulligan in a tournament that doesn't have known deck lists, you just kind of go like, well, I see an Arcanologist, I see Primordial Glyph, so this could be 38 different decks.
It could be. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how Mage has evolved because they got a couple power cards that really catapulted a bunch of different archetypes all at once. So who knows what the strongest one is right now. It all depends on the situation, depends on the matchup, but usually the most consistent of all of them is the Discover Mage, the Burn Mage, which actually has gone towards more refined lists recently. At the beginning of, sort of the deck's inception, there was a ton of cards that people were playing around with, like 10 cards that differed from deck to deck. But now it's usually like 3 or 4. Polymorph, weapon removal, Flame Strike, those types of dealios, Archmage Tinnitus, those type of flex slots where you can sort of tailor it to what type of matchup you're expecting.
Did you just say dealios? What is the definition of dealios to you?
It's like when you want to say, that type of deal, but you want to add a little bit extra flair onto it.
And you were in 7th grade, so you just had the IO. You're just like...
I have some isms that stuck with me from middle school. Like, this match is going to be hecka cool.
Is it going to be off the chain? No? Okay. Well... All right, we're going to go ahead and hop into...
Is it hot in here?
No, TJ, that's just you. Let's go ahead and hop in here, though, to this match, which should be a hot one. It is going to be Slayer Max on any number of mages, and it is going to be purple on the Jade Druid. So traditionally, tempo-based mages that have that aggressive start have the leg up on the Druid. They tend to put out a lot of pressure the Druid can't contest organically. But I think the secrets in this deck will potentially tell us a lot about how New Zealand wants to navigate this matchup.
Or it may tell us nothing. You know, from time to time, you find a mage deck that you really can't pinpoint it until the very end. And sometimes you never knew what type of mage deck it was. So.
But you thought you did.
But you thought you did.
When you say Babbling Book, though, and Babbling Book these days is not an automatic inclusion in a lot of mage decks.
No, it's not. But it is a flex choice for every mage deck. So
sure.
That makes it even more difficult to pin down.
All right, well, the Mana Worm, certainly what you want to see is the mage on turn 1. They did get that in the mulligan, chose to keep it. They have the Babbling Book as well if they want to go ahead and just coin it out. I think I'd be a little bit surprised if they just go Mana Worm, coin Babbling Book, but it obviously does pump up the Mana Worm and let you know a little bit more about your coming turns based on the resource you get from the Babbling Book.
A lot of it depends on what they think the deck's going to be. But to be honest, I kind of like the Mana Worm, coin Babbling Book because they have Frostbolt for next turn should they need it. But if they can make the read that it's... Actually, I don't know. Because even if it's Jade Druid, sometimes the buff on the Mana Worm makes it a little bit beneficial. But if they do make the read that it's Jade Druid, Frostbolt will not find a target next turn. And so that gives them a nod to go for coin Arcane Intellect.
All right, well, the Wrath will tell them pretty clearly that this is not any sort of token beast-style Druid. They generally don't run that. The most removal you tend to see is one copy of Swipe. But yeah, there goes the Mana Worm and Mirror Entity now.
All right, well, that does tell us something. It's probably a variation of an aggressive Secret Mage. Or not.
Be whatever you want it to be, Tej.
It can be.
You could just name it.
Slayer Max Mage.
Okay. Post it to Reddit.
This deck is mine now.
You name a deck. That's your deck now. Nobody else can claim it.
That's me, all right.
Looks like he's just, I would imagine, considering coin Arcane Intellect, at this point, the Mirror Entity is really not going to net you anything super good. And again, you know that at this point, unless you're playing against easy Big Druid, which, you know, that deck is certainly rising in popularity as Zixo continues to tweet out the deck list. I've actually run into Big Druid in the past week. Way more than I ever did back in the day.
So 3 times as opposed to 0.
I mean, that's like a 300% improvement right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think New Zealand was hoping with that coin Arcane Intellect to find a Kirintor Mage to be able to tempo out the Mirror Entity the following turn. They do find Cabal Crystal Runner, so this turn they could go Mirror Entity, and then next turn play the 4-mana 5/5. And then they basically catch up the Jade Spirit with the Mirror Entity. Should it be played? I mean, it's pretty weak, but it's something. I mean, this is a pretty good matchup. Unless you have an abysmal hand, a lot of times you are going to be able to develop threats in the mid game and then burn them out in the later portions of the mid game.
The more mid game.
There's not really a late game.
The Cretaceous period of the mid game.
Yes.
Nah, I want to see them really go Jurassic. You know, being honest. Yeah, the other option there that kind of stood out to me is potentially Mana Worm. Just get rid of the 1/1 with the ping, but the Mirror Entity, for the reasons you brought up, is a little bit more proactive. Leads more into that Cabal Crystal Runner.
So it's not Ice Barrier or Vaporize. Let's take a gander.
What's behind door number 2?
It's a Jade Spirit.
Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being nothing happens and 10 being got him, how do you feel as New Zealand getting that Jade Spirit?
About a 3.
Yeah. Mild frowning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so they go ahead there. Purple chooses to just play down the Jade Idol just to get a 3/3 on the board, and I actually like that because for their hand, they don't have a Gadget Sand, so there's nothing that says, like, okay, this is going to be something we're going to use to draw a bunch of cards potentially later. And getting board pressure early on against the Mage just puts them on the back foot. And the
Yeah.
mage traditionally tends to prosper when they're being the aggressor in this matchup.
They do. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't really know why Secret Mage is successful as it is, because it's very much so a second-tier aggressive deck. A lot of players think it's a third-tier aggressive deck. It's a hand that can, or it's a deck that can definitely suffer from bad hands and bad draws, a ton more so than other decks. But time and time again, players keep going back to it. Ooh, another mirror entity.
Yeah, more importantly, when this secret gets played, you know, it could be anything, so Canada suddenly has to approach the turn very differently.
Yeah. And I think Mirror Entity is, after that, is the best play. Not only does it guarantee them a pretty big minion, because there's really not too many small minions left in the deck for Canada, but it also was the secret that came off of Babbling Book. So it may make Canada think twice about a play that they were going to make, or it may make them play unoptimally because they have to play around a secret. And I think this is exactly that. They didn't want that Nourish to be counterspelled, so they had to test for counterspell.
And there's a chance that this is just a big resource they had to forego, especially now that you see those gadgets ends come into hand. Losing out on the innervate is pretty big, as that's oftentimes a catalyst for kind of the party that goes off with gadgets in.
True. Now they're very limited on what they can do the following turns.
This party's not going to be that exciting.
No. And now that they've used the innervate to test for counterspell, now that counterspell is most likely going to come out anyway, they don't have that spell fodder to be able to do it. And they still have to worry about what that secret is. This is bad news bears. Frostbolt, counterspell, Cabal, Crystal Runner. What if my voice just keeps getting higher and higher?
I'm not going to stop you. You just keep going.
Hearthstone!
I thought we were going to go into the Family Guy, like, raise your voice as you described the situation.
That's literally as high as my voice goes.
Oh, that's not a problem I have, buddy. I'll play that game with you. Finally, something I can beat you in. We take him where we can get him. Yeah, they're going right with the line of play you suggested.
I saw this play a minute ago.
I'm late. I'm late.
And it only took me one brain.
Do you usually have a second one that you're working with?
They have 4 brains. Actually, in talking with a lot of the players and, you know, having interviewed a lot of them, playing Hearthstone with 4 people is sometimes harder than playing Hearthstone by yourself.
No, it's true. I always like to harken back to the tale of, you know, the one time I was playing Hearthstone and Mike Danae walked up behind me. And Mike Danae, you know, again, I was new at Blizzard and it's Mike Danae. Of course, I trust him. And he just walks up, he's like, just make this play. And I was like, I don't know, Mike, this seems bad. And he's like, nah, just do it. And I listened to him because it's Mike Danae. And Mike Danae intentionally made me make a really bad play. And then after I got punished by it, he laughed at me. And then walked away from my desk.
And then you saw Ben Brode hand him $10, and they both started laughing.
No, Ben's a nice guy. Mike Danae is a nice guy, but he's also a mischievous guy. Ben Brode only wants to help you.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Mischievous.
I was gonna say, as you said though, this is just a very difficult situation now for Canada because they pretty much have to spend a turn trying to find out exactly what these secrets are. And, you know, Slayer Max is going to be given a complimentary 3/6 free from the tavern.
Ooh.
Piece of candy.
Nah, this is tough though, because if you go for either Arcane Intellect or Primordial Glyph, by committing to Mana Worm plus either one of those, you all of a sudden give up your opportunity to Fireball.
Yeah.
And Fireball may be your best way to get through this Jade Behemoth.
Man, that Mana Worm was just sitting on the bench like, put me in, coach. You got spells. Buff me up. I want to go. But
Yeah.
the curve just not lining up for poor old Mana Worm.
Yeah, you could Mana Worm Primordial Glyph, and if you don't pick up something impactful, you can still trade over the Cabal Crystal Runner, ping, and then most likely just go face, since the board would trade off anyway. And
Yeah,
you
but
face damage.
how important is it to you to use the Fireball this turn?
Fireball, you know, a lot of the ways that you win this is by keeping onto a board. So I actually don't mind Fireball, because the burn later in the game, if you don't have a board, is not as impactful. You'd much rather use the burn to protect a board because Druid has ways to deal with damage from hand with armor gain. They don't have ways to deal with a big board because they just have limited removal. So I actually like the Fireball better there in that case because it's a guaranteed way to protect your board. And you could always follow that up with spells later on to support your board instead. So I think this is definitely the right call.
What do you think about the not trading there at all? Because I like putting the 5/5 to face. I think I don't mind putting the 3/6 into the 2/3.
It doesn't change the way the board trades into your 3/6 by trading into the 2/3. So I 100% agree with face damage there.
Okay. Yep.
Because, you know, if he trades over your Jade Behemoth, with the information that you have, he trade the 2/3 and the 4/4 anyway. You have a counter spell up, so you're not worried about, say, a swipe coming out and him being able to trade more efficiently. So you might as well just make him have it, especially if you're playing the deck that
needs to be the aggressor.
Yeah.
You've sold me, Tej. I almost strayed into a situation where I wanted to trade, but you taught me better.
Do not stray from the light.
Kieran Tormage a little bit late there.
Yeah, but still got I think at least one secret left in the deck. That's pretty good.
Princess Huhuran is big.
Yeah, but now Secret Mage is at the point where they just got to hope that they don't have it, and that is a reasonable draw. It will take a ton of heat away from Purple's and Canada's face, but they'll still have a 5/5 on the board that they won't be able to deal with at the end of the day. They do have Earthen Scales in their back pocket, and their Jades are actually reasonably big. The next Jade is going to be a 6/6, so maybe they've turned the corner.
It was important to get that Primordial Drake from the standpoint of you didn't want to have to put your actual face into the 6/5, so they definitely got a lot of value out of that big wall. There's the Cabal Crystal Runner, or rather the second one. It is free now. Might just be time to dig with that glyph, see what you find.
I think burn or a way to get this 5 damage to this Primordial Drake. So I'm thinking like polymorph. Yeah. Or Meteor could even be pretty good because you're putting a 5/5 right beside it. Ooh. That's...
TJ, are you a Kabbalist Tome gamer?
These are pretty good options. I don't know if you want to reset. Kabbalist Tome is very expensive. You're paying 3 mana, and you're not going to find a way with Kabbalist Tome to deal with the Primordial Drake this turn because you'd only be left with 3 mana.
I think if you had 7 mana, Firelands Portal seems like a really
well, you only need 5.
Oh, yeah, because of reduction.
So
yeah, I like this, and then you put the body in, put down the second Crystal Runner. You're probably going to have something decent off the Firelands Portal.
Yeah.
I'm late.
This just develops the most power. The other option would have been to reset with second glyph, but I think this ends up being the best way to deal with it. All right, need a spell. Whoa!
That is exactly a spell. In fact, it's 2 spells.
It's 2 spells, and one of those spells already draws a card. So Wild Growth with Guidance and Auctioneer draws 3 cards, so they're going to be able to draw 4 with Earthen Scales, more if they pick up Innervate, second Innervate off of this. Let's see.
Not quite, but the Primordial Drake is still a good draw on a future turn, assuming they don't die here, which the armor you get from the Earthen Scales certainly helps with that. Ooh, Primordial Glyph,
man.
though.
So 9 damage on board. They're at 20 health.
Pyroblast. Yeah, Pyroblast wins.
Doesn't quite
it would win on the next turn. Well, no, because of the armor. So yeah, it wouldn't actually quite do it.
I think another Firelands Portal is what they're going for. Kill off that Gadget and Auctioneer, put 9 damage to the face. See what they get.
I mean,
It's got to be Cabal.
I was going to say, it's not Kona Cold. I don't think it's Mana Bind.
Mana Bind will get you probably Nourish or Feral Rage.
I mean, Feral Rage is still 4 damage.
Yeah, and they're likely to pick up a secret from Kabbalist Tome that they could tempo out with the Kirantor Mage.
Or it just could be 3 Shatters.
It could be 3 Shatters. They also could Arcane Intellect. They still have Fireball left in their deck that they could pick up to deal with this Gadgetzan Auctioneer. They are probably... Oh, they could still get it from Kabbalist Tome, but less likely. And Vaporize is a secret that they can play. I think they'll still have to trade over with the 5/5, but at least they're tempoing out something. And they're putting that extra layer of depth into Canada's turn that could throw them off because it's a randomly generated secret, so they have to play around everything.
Now, the Firelands portal, pretty solid pickup. You know, they did get the one shatter, which, you know, you don't want to see. But I think overall I rate that as being an okay Cabal Stone.
It was a primordial glyph that generated a shatter, a vaporize,
Well, sure,
and
but
a
I'm just
Firelance.
talking about the Cabalist Tome independently. Because a lot of times with Cabalist Tome, like one of the hesitation points is a lot of times you just get junk you don't need.
True.
And Vaporize sucks in this matchup, realistically. But the upside is that, to your point, they have to play around it differently and perhaps inefficiently. And it was something you could do with the 4-3. But yeah, the Firelands portal's good.
Man, there's so much to play around here. Spellbender, Counterspell, Mirror Entity all throw a huge wrench.
Potion of Polymorph.
Potion of Polymorph as well. So you go for Primordial Drake.
Yeah. And this is one of the areas where this style of Druid deck suffers, is that they really don't have many things they can just throw away to test. A lot of their investments are fairly expensive, so...
All right, Primordial Drake it is.
Yep, just believing.
And good sequencing there. In case it's Mirror Entity, they want to attack first, or else there'll be a taunt in the way, and they couldn't hero power it down. So Primordial Drake sticks, and you could tell Purple was crossing his fingers. So that eliminates a bunch of secrets. It's now either Ice Block, Ice Barrier, Vaporize, Counterspell, or Spellbender. Cannot be Mirror Entity or Potion of Polymorph. Could also be Mana Bind. Man, still a lot of secrets. Mage has a lot of secrets.
That is true.
This is going to get through the Primordial Drake really efficiently, though.
Yeah, Purple did not want to see that, and can't blame him. That Firelands portal off the Cabal Stone just came up pretty big.
So let's take stock of the burn, shall we? Fireball.
Uh-huh.
There's a natural Firelands portal because one came from Cabal's Tome and one came from the Primordial Glyph. There's a Frostbolt. What else, Rob?
I mean, it could be a Pyroblast.
Could be.
Could be. This is a more aggressive style
I'll put up
deck.
half a finger for that one.
Okay. TJ, you holding up your fingers does much less when I'm the only person who can see them.
Yeah.
I'll describe them, though. There are some fingers that are fully stretched. One is half stretched because TJ doesn't believe in the possibility of Pyroblast.
Again, there's a lot of secrets to play around. In a test for Counterspell here. Not going to be it. Still could be Spellbender, though. Not going to be Spellbender either. So now it's severely limited. I do like this this sequencing, then. They played around all the secrets as best they possibly could. And the Spellbender, they basically just had to say, I hope it's not that.
All right, let's intellect. Let's see what we get.
That's essentially burn from the deck. They actually should have a natural Spellbender in the deck.
Okay, well, now
spells are gone.
they can Kirin Tor, Spellbender, Valet, and get in the ping.
Have a 2-3, a 2-2, and a 4-3 on board. I don't know. It's going to be tough for Canada to fight their way out of this one. They're nearly out of Armageddon. They've used both Feral Rages and one Earthen Scales. So, and their removal is going to be pretty limited. With Spellbender, that's going to be another secret that they're going to have to worry about. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where Canada just has to say, we cannot afford to play around any secrets. We just have to hope that it's the best case scenario for us and just play into it as much as possible.
Now, I talked about that Shatter is just, in most situations, a pretty bad card, but it is something that is being sandbagged at this point, that Canada does at least have to consider all the potential possibilities of it.
Yeah.
They know it is a Cabalist Tome card.
It is a Cabalist Tome card. What's the pickup?
Oh, Druid of the Claw. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So they just saw that the other secret that was played did come out of the deck. It wasn't something off Cabalist Tome or Primordial Glyph.
Purple's got the look on his face is like, if this is Counterspell, I hate my life.
Purple's had a lot of those looks over the course of Hearthstone Global Games.
He has.
Yeah. He's been beat up by a fair few mages as he, continues to play Druid. Okay, he's like, yeah, that's what I thought. Better not be Counterspell. Okay, so you can get out the swipe. You can make a Golem.
If you swipe and it's Spellbender,
Yeah,
you're
but I don't.
pretty much dead.
But I don't think you expect that.
Maybe not.
I mean, you've seen Mirror Entity, so maybe. maybe Spellbender feels like something that's on your radar. But at this point, we just come down to the, okay, what actually can you do? Ooh, and he gets the bad news.
All right, so they have 9 damage with a ping. With the damage on board plus a ping. So any burn spell here will do it. Arcanologist will not. I don't even know if they have a secret left in their deck. There could be a second counter spell or an ice block, perhaps. We'll see. Wow, another counter spell.
Okay.
Yikes.
You just got to push that damage now.
And, I mean, that should do it. Unless Purple draws a spell that he can put into the counterspell as fodder, there's no way for them to gain armor, and there's no way for them to clear enough of the board, I don't think, in order for them to be able to survive. Maybe with Jade Behemoth, though. Actually, Jade Behemoth keeps them alive. They can't attack into anything.
They can test, though, if the other secret is at least barrier.
Yeah.
Not that that's super useful at this point, but that is a thing they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Put that Behemoth, and then Slayer Max just saying, show me the burn.
And I think you have to save that Earthen Scales to hope that the last card that you draw is going to be a spell so you can proc the counter spell and then gain the armor. But again,
I mean, I don't know if this lands. That is a lot of armor.
It is. I think you have to hold on to it and hope that you draw a spell. Pyros, that's not burn.
Yeah, the real power point for Pyro is kind of passed a while ago, so Pyro, even if it just comes back as a 10-10 over the next couple turns,
Yeah.
it just really doesn't matter in the face of these Jade Golems.
I think there's still 3 burn spells left in New Zealand's deck out of 8. So next turn they will have close to a 50% chance to draw that burn spell.
What secrets do they have right now? It's Vaporize.
And Counterspell,
Okay.
the second Counterspell.
And say without the block up, Canada's actually putting together a decent chunk of damage. The Druid of the Claw could come out with charge.
This is getting close. What's the draw? Wrath.
Wrath is big.
That is actually massive because they'll be able to test for the counterspell with this, which they can almost certainly know that it is. And then Earthen Scales to be able to gain 8 armor, 9 with the hero power.
I love watching Purple play, man. His demeanor in the last 2 minutes has just changed so sharply.
Yeah. And you can also push 9 damage this turn, which also means you set up for a 2-turn lethal. 9 plus 9 is 18. So I don't know if there's a way out here for New Zealand.
Oh my goodness, Fireball! Where have you been?
1 turn too late, and there is no way for them to survive. They needed, I believe, exactly Frostbolt in order to Frostbolt shatter the 8-8 to be able to stay alive. They could have traded in the 2-2 and gone with the 6-6 as well, but yikes, that's a tough loss for New Zealand. Very tough loss.
Yeah, we talk about all the time how players are rewarded for putting themselves in smart positions. This is the other side of the coin where you put yourself in the position, you put yourself within striking distance, and then the deck just doesn't deliver.
Yeah, I just think that missing those couple early turns where they had chances for power turns but instead just developed a secret and didn't do much else allowed Purple and Canada to test for secrets thoroughly and still have enough time to get there. And then, of course, there's New Zealand just not drawing the burn later in the game when they needed to. I mean, there was a couple turns there where all they needed was a single burn spell and they won. So,
well, and to your point, as you were saying, there was a while in the beginning of the game where that mana room just sat in hand, while other choices were made. So certainly room for New Zealand to potentially, after this series, if they wanted to, look it over and see what they could have done differently. But Canada, yeah, Purple getting a win that he doesn't often seem to get on broadcast, at least. And New Zealand, I just want to point out, New Zealand has not lost a series of Hearthstone in the global games since May 4th. Like, that is the absolute tear they've been on. It is quite possibly the best record overall in the Hearthstone Global Games. I'd have to double check on that. But the run they put together is incredibly inspiring, especially for a team coming in here that has had to battle a lot of behemoths to get to this point.
Yeah, and they had to battle a lot of behemoths in that game as well.
See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
You got there.
That was an excellent pun.
Thanks. Let's go and take a look at the score thus far. That is a win in the books for Canada, who came into this looking a little bit shaky. Stage 2, they went 1-2 and had to rely on some favorable match scores to actually make it to the round of 16. So definitely a great thing for them to just go ahead and get that win.
Yeah, next up, we're going to see APX Void on the Paladin and Flame Lord on the Shaman.
Yep, we saw this matchup already once tonight. I believe when we saw it, though, it was the Control Paladin from Firebat against the Bloodlust Shaman from Taiwan. I don't remember which player specifically played it, but yeah. In general, the way this lines up, if it's not necessarily any super fancy bells and whistles, depends very much, as you said, on the archetype, right?
Yeah.
So not really worth necessarily focusing too much on that.
No, but instead I'm going to focus on it even more.
No, because let me stop you there. So APX Void, I think he was streaming the other night, and Lorinda was actually telling me that Pathra went into APX Void's channel and subbed to him and said that the sub message was researching for global games. So, APX Void is a wanted man. He's got a target on his back.
He does. That's the unfortunate part about being a streamer and a competitive player is people can scout the heck out of you, man.
Yeah, and APX Void is someone who, he's joined by other members of Team Canada who share this trait. He's someone who's more innovative and willing to kind of try out different things to arrive at the list he's likes. He's obviously very much known for his mage play.
Yeah.
But he does tend to innovate with other decks as well.
And
Flame Lord has impeccable posture.
He does. And in the interview that I recorded with him that I forgot to record sound, I actually talked to him about his impeccable posture, and I said, where does you learn to have such good posture? And he says, I don't know. I don't think I have good posture. What a guy, man. So humble about his posture.
Yeah, I mean, he could really just rub it in your face, right? He could be like, yeah, I weigh 90 pounds soaking wet. I have perfect posture. But he's like, you know what? I don't even think about it, Tej.
Yeah. I really, really wish that interview had aired. But maybe I'll release the unedited footage of Flame Lord talking with no sound.
The TJ interview's uncut.
Yeah, we could do that, but you probably wouldn't like it.
Why not?
Unless you just like Flame Lord's posture. You just could admire it the whole time and just imagine what I would be talking to him about during those fleeting seconds.
You could put in your own subtitles. It'd be a game.
For one moment, I thought his posture would slip out of his grasp.
But he never did.
He kept the same. And I actually think he was playing a game of something while he was talking to me because he kept clickety-clacking on his keyboard.
Yeah.
And maybe I subconsciously turned off the sound out of spite because of that.
He's probably typing to other people how much he did not like talking to you.
Cut off his sound. He was talking to his New Zealand hacker friends.
All right, well, we see APX Void sporting some of the telltale signs of a more control-oriented, slow Paladin list, whereas Flame Lord, nothing seems too suspect here. This just looks like a good old-fashioned Evolve Shaman.
It does.
And I'm not really surprised. We talked about coming into this week that a lot of players, especially when looking to tune up their DreamHack Valencia lineup, were kind of tinkering around with the idea of alternative Shaman lists. But for these guys, where it's, single elimination, round of 16, you've been playing in this league for so long. It's not really anything you're going to leave up to chance. And in addition to the fact that, as you pointed out earlier, the Global Games format is certainly much different from last year's standing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's much different from pretty much anything we've ever seen in Hearthstone. There's a lot of different layers to it. Not only is it Conquest, but it's also 2-deck. Each game is blind pick.
Yeah.
So, and over the course of, however many weeks we've had in Global Games, a lot, 12.
I don't know if you noticed, but the actual
13.
title of Global Games, it's like Hearthstone Global Games.
Day 40.
Day 40. It's like a zombie apocalypse. It's
Yeah.
like,
Day 40.
My opponent played another Bloodlust Shaman.
9 countries remain.
Nobody plays Hunter or Warlock. These are the dark times. Speaking of dark times, though, Flame Lord draws patches. We saw a lot of that at the Spring Championship.
Yeah, start off with double Profit Totem. Pretty good. Draw patches and then Bloodlust back to back. Not the best. And a lot of times patches on turn 1 is not the best play, just because many decks can just remove it and you want to get immediate value out of it outside of just it being killed on turn 1. But Paladin, not a pink class. This Patches could potentially get in
For
multiple
30
points of damage.
Yeah.
It could also mean that when your opponent does want to remove a very key minion on your board, just having 1 extra power could make their math a little bit off. You can contest something that could protect another minion. So in this matchup, I think that I do agree with playing it on turn 1. We'll see how it's going to affect the outcome of the game. But I mean, that's just sort of the downside that you have to accept when you play Patches in your deck is sometimes, albeit, rarely, when you look at it over the course of, broad scale of games, you're going to draw it.
Options.
I mean, in a deck where you're only running 2 other pirates, yeah, the odds are certainly better.
It's a race against the clock.
Your win condition is actually just to not draw Patches.
Sure. You drew Patches. You don't necessarily like Patches.
You put it in your deck.
deck anyway.
Patches says, "Why don't you like me?" You say, "It's not you. I just wanted you not to pay mana."
You're supposed to come for free out of my deck, Patches. Why didn't you?
But you had to pay for something that should have been free. Huh, that's you all right.
Oh, Patches.
All right, well, Flame Lord making this turn seem a lot more complicated than I'm sure most of us would think it is. It is certainly Primal Fin Totem, and, even though he drew the Patches, he paid for the Patches, and that Patches cost him actual hard-earned mana. It's pushing damage, it's setting up for a potential turn 5 Bloodlust if things are not dealt with, but as we see, APX Void draws even a second copy of Doomsayer, and we saw just how impactful Doomsayer can be in this matchup if not addressed.
Especially if, you're not going to keep... A lot of times you're not going to keep Devolve in the matchup. Maybe sometimes you will if your hand is good besides it, but it's going to be really tough for them to deal with, and I think Flame Lord is just like, why me? Flame Lord's sitting there like, Patches, you look like a drooling blue potato. Maybe sometimes I feel like a drooling blue potato.
All right, TJ, come on. We can talk about this at the psychiatric office, buddy. All right, well, going to go ahead and just make the totem. That discounts the thing from below, copies that are in there somewhere. So it is accomplishing something other than just remorselessly sacrificing.
A tiny amount of accomplishment. But
tiny task, tiny reward.
I thought you put an end to it, but I knew you couldn't resist.
TJ, I'm not going to be the adult on this broadcast. I think I would prefer to just sit there and do that voice the whole time.
I know.
But we have to do justice to the fact this is the round of 16. Teams have worked hard.
Especially these teams. These 2 teams were probably the 2 better performing teams in Phase 1 out of some of the teams that we have left.
Yep.
Especially Canada had an incredible start. New Zealand has sort of ramped up as HGG has gone on.
I'm telling you, I know when it comes down to, okay, why does a player do well in Hearthstone? The very best are just going to say, let's look at the deck lists. But I think in a team tournament, there's actually something to be said about a team growing together.
Yeah.
And New Zealand, when I first talked to them in the beginning, I don't necessarily want to say anything that I'm not qualified to say, but the reality is this was a team that, kind of came together, didn't know much about each other. Mm-hmm. There wasn't necessarily a whole lot of good communication going on, but as they started having those successes, as they started ramping up, I really do think that specifically, again, call out Pathra really kind of brought this team together.
Yeah.
And now they've been for a while just performing on all cylinders. So I definitely think that is something to say about New Zealand. Canada, these were kind of guys who all knew each other beforehand, or at least knew of each other, right? The Canadian Hearthstone scene specifically is one that is pretty tight-knit. So it wasn't like they necessarily had to do a lot of growing together.
Yeah, the only thing about Canada that's, sort of unique to them as a team and as a country as opposed to other ones is they're so spread apart.
Yeah.
APX Void is from Vancouver area, so all the way in the west of Canada. Sidonia is the opposite. He's from Quebec, which is all the way on the far east side of Canada. And then Hotform is right in the middle in Toronto. And Purple kind of different. Well, sometimes he lives in France and sometimes he lives in Canada. So if he's in France, Sidonia's in Quebec, Hotform's in Toronto, and then APX Void's in Vancouver. They're like worlds apart, basically.
Kind of, but you have 2 of them in French Canada. I don't know how that applies on a geography level, but spiritually.
Well, actually, Purple is, while he is French and Canadian, he's not French Canadian.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. They say, hey, come cast Global Games. They never tell you you're going to learn.
True that. I've learned a lot today.
That two silly people casting on the desk together is inherently dangerous.
It really is.
All right, well, Flame Lord, after the board got flushed out by the first Doomsayer, just doing his best to get back on the board. APX Void realizing he can take it slow. He has tools that interact very favorably with the board. The true Silver Champion could just come out, deal with the Primal Fin Totem, and it looks like that is what he's eyeing. He's going to yell Boom Shakalaka as he 360 windmill slams this Primal Fin Totem.
From the top turnbuckle.
Puts it in the full Nelson.
That's acceptable.
Look, I wasn't a part of your guys' brainstorming on that one. I'm just kind of
Along for the ride.
Yeah,
I see. I see. Well, one thing that Canada does lack is, full sweeping board removals, consecration, and equality to go with this Wild Pyromancer. They have Primordial Drake, but that's a few turns away. So I think going into turn 6, they'll be worried about Doppelgangster plus Evolve as one way that they could get blown out of the game.
That is certainly something I was considering into why you just might preemptively play the Doomsayer. Just try to stall it off a turn.
This turn, you mean?
Yeah.
That could be an option, actually, especially since they really don't have other strong plays outside of, like, Hydrologist, because they don't want to use a coin, because coin is almost 100% slated for one of those 8-drops. And, I mean, their other play is what? Attack with True Silver Champion, set Rallying Blade, Hero Power, or Hydrologist. I think that going into turn 6 is probably the best value that you are going to get out of Doomsayer.
No, I definitely like swinging into the Mana Tide Totem, just making sure it actually goes away, making sure Bloodlust doesn't potentially become an issue. I like getting rid of that and then equipping the Rallying Blade, because again, your next few turns are kind of spoken for.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, you're really not seeing any kind of weapon destruction tech in Bloodlust Shaman, so you can feel pretty safe that the Rallying Blade probably sticks around.
Well, there's Bloodsoul Corsair.
Oh, yeah, never mind. Sorry. It's literally part of the core of the deck. Aside from that...
But it's not really in there for weapon destruction. It's
Maybe
in there
that's why I
because
don't
it's the
think of it.
cheapest pirate.
Yeah.
It just has the added bonus of weapon destruction. And the fact that weapons just, pretty much pummel the deck in general. Because it cuts through your board.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing.
Choosing to forgo the Doomsayer did get a getaway Kodo off of the Hydrologist, so that is never a bad thing.
Well, that's a bold statement, Robert.
When is it a bad thing? When do you ever just not want something back?
Will come back to me later. My subconscious is working on it.
I guess if you had a TJ on the board and you didn't want another TJ, you probably would not play the getaway Kodo.
If you're in the very rare circumstance that you would not want another TJ in your hand.
I mean, there are like a lot of what if you only have like a certain amount of food because you eat a lot.
I do. This is a fact.
So to preserve that, like cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think you were right. We came to a scenario where we would not want getaway Kodo.
I think we're onto something here.
We need a podcast, man. That's what we need to do. Is just that's a natural place for this kind of nonsense. All right, the double Maelstrom portal does work. Clears off the board for Flame Lord while developing a couple of cheap minions, and he does have that Bloodlust, so certainly upside.
So there's some cheeky plays that Canada can do here if they really want to keep removing the board in its fullest. And that's go for something with Wild Pyromancer and some of the cheap spells that they have in their hand. They could also go with the Doomsayer just this turn, play it on the board. And that way, New Zealand is forced to extend more or give up complete initiative on board. If they extend more, you sweep with Primordial Drake. If they give up the board, you play Tyrion. So I think that Doomsayer definitely has some value played onto this board. And then Doomsayer plus Rallying Blade down the 1/3 to reduce the likelihood they are to be able to clear it off. That seems like a reasonable play to me.
Yeah, when you are playing against a Bloodlust Shaman, you are of course aware they have the ability to pump up attack, the minions on their board, but you're always basically saying like, well, how much do you want to commit to protect this board, right? And I think Flame Lord's at the point where if he can get around expending, say, Bloodlust, he's willing to expend other resources to just go ahead and keep the board going because, again, once you're off the board here, you're going into that turn 8, you know bad things are going to happen to you.
True. There's the weapon destruction
That doesn't exist.
that we know so well.
Yeah. What'd you call it again?
I wonder.
Blitzsail Corsair?
Oh my god, what a card. Yeah.
What a card. And at the moment, New Zealand does not have a way to get through this Doomsayer unless they want to expend a Bloodlust to do so.
That is an Orc Fencer, by the way. You don't see many of those.
You really don't, no.
No. They usually use like axes and stuff,
You-
like
you-
Gorehowl.
You don't really see pirates or orcs very much ever
Like in real life.
in real life.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
This is a kind of janky turn. I was just talking about how you want to protect your board, but
Bloodlust is too much
Yeah,
of
you
a
can't
valuable
give it up.
resources.
yeah.
And now they're going to be able to slam Tyrion onto an empty board, and then they have Primordial Drake to protect it.
They even have Getaway Kodo for the Tyrion.
They do, and they just drew a Spectred Steed. New Zealand is going to have a very tough time winning this game.
That's not even the natural Tyrion, man. I got a second one.
Yeah.
I just got that.
Yeah,
It was free.
it was free.
Played a 3-mana 1/4. Free Tyrion.
Why are you threatening me with the second Tyrion?
I'm sorry.
just spectating.
I got really excited.
It's okay.
What to do?
But,
It's not okay for New Zealand.
Speaking of Tyrion, New Zealand's in trouble.
Well, they kind of rolled their own Tyrions there.
Yeah,
White Eyes is a legendary taunt you get from Stonehill Defender, but as a shaman.
But Paladin, Control Paladin just has so many ways to cut down. And putting a 5/5 onto the board right now really doesn't do much because it's just going to get run over by the Divine Shield of the Tyrion.
Yep.
And then you have to rely on drawing the Storm Guardian from your deck, and then being able to play it onto a board where you're confident it's not going to get Aldor Peacekeepered or Equality removed.
Yeah,
from
there's
the
there's a
other
lot
side.
of there's a lot of asks at this point, and you
There really
realize
is.
there's just actually no chance. In most situations, that this is going to go in a manner you prefer.
Yeah. So no patch going to be pulled because they drew that on turn 1. So
Okay, Doppelgangster.
Doppelgangster Evolve could be the way back in for New Zealand. They do have reload potential plus the burn potential with Flame Totem and Bloodlust. So there is a small chance.
Yeah, and one of the things about Control Paladin in general that's kind of exacerbated if you're running the N'Zoth package is you need very specific answers at very specific points. It's not like with Warrior where you're like, all right, I have a Brawl. That's a 1 card that just mostly clears the board. I have a second Brawl. I have Sleep with the Fishes. I have Ravaging Ghoul. It really, once you get that big board going, you need Equality, you need Pyromancer, you need Consecration, you need something. So if they can just slam down the Doppelgangster Evolve on the next turn and just basically say, well, you got to have it, that might be a way into this game for them.
Yeah, the one thing about that combo is you usually want to do it once your board is removed and when your opponent doesn't have anything on the board.
Yeah.
Instead of in this situation where they'll most likely have to just play it while Canada has a pretty extensive board advantage. So
Wicker, Flicker, Burn, Bricker coming down.
sounds right. Wicker, Idiot, Bristlebrain.
Benedict Cumberbatch. No drawer with a picture of it. No. Okay. Never mind. Gotta try him. Gotta see what happens.
That would have been incredibly impressive if they just had a picture of him stood by in the card drawer, but unfortunately they do not.
If there is somebody who's gonna have that, it's Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug is the producer here at ESL.
It's important to make your memes topical for the audience too.
It is. Oh, well, he's going to get a 7-drop. That's actually a pretty
That's
nice
big.
outcome. Yeah. Ancient of Lore is one of the weaker 7-drops.
Yeah, it's not the old Ancient Allure that used to be juiced up, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, or restore 5 health.
Yeah, this is a weaker Ancient of Lore. Can also do a pretty good job of just playing into the Getaway Kodo now. You just get rid of that Wisp.
So again, they're going to wait an additional turn to go for the Doppelgangster Evolve. They're trying to find some type of better board position. And I definitely like this. I think that New Zealand is playing, you know, to what they can, and they're drawing pretty well.
Yeah, they definitely hit the power spikes they need to hit. And now, you know, they've set up a big enough board to where Canada is finally, for the first time in the game, realistically, going to have to give this some thought in terms of how they actually want to answer it. Because up until this point, it's just like, casual Doomsayer. This is fine.
Yeah. They still have plenty of game left. They have not used a single piece of removal. No Consecrations, no Wild Pyromancer, no Primordial Drakes, no Equalities, no Aldar Peacekeepers. So they've gotten to this point of staying ahead in the game with very little resources. So that's sort of the big bright side for Canada, and one of the big downsides for New Zealand, because effectively they still have to worry about the removal, but they also have to make sure that they're trying to build up enough board to where Bloodlust is actually impactful. And I think this has to be the turn where Doppelgangster Evolve comes out. They could IL plus J-Claws this turn and try and set that up by going a little bit wider. Actually, maybe that's better. And hope to hit an even bigger Evolve next turn. Boy, this is tough.
Well, one thing to consider is that there have been no Jade Golems played yet for New Zealand. So the Jade Golems that are coming are actually just 1-1 and 2-2 respectively. So they are still pretty small, and there's, you know, a point in the game where you might kind of hope that maybe the Jade Golems start to carry you a little bit of the distance, but they're not ready just yet.
They're not ripe.
Nope. They're like the green bananas you see. You're like, I can't eat these yet.
You can. Just like you can play Iowa and the Jades are small. They're just not as delicious. Or soft.
Well, that is a factor. Ooh, going to North End.
That is not bad. In fact, I'd venture as far to say is that's pretty good. They don't attack with the Argent Commander, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because it would have made their board a little bit weaker to Consecration, actually.
Or just second Primordial Drake as well.
Yeah. In this case, second Primordial Drake may have to come out.
Yeah, I mean, it clears up a decent chunk of the board, allows them to use the Primordial Drake to do a little bit of trading. The important part, though, is they're at a situation where, you know, a lot of times the Shaman board, you just pretty much have to say, well, do you have a quality Consecration? Or do you have, you know, a quality Primordial Drake, something? But they can actually just kind of use their resources a little more judiciously. And this is a lot of the resources that was in Flame Lord's hands.
Yeah. They still have a bit of power on the board, though. They're going to have 4-2. They're going to have the Imp Master, and Lord of the Arena is still alive. So they will be able to cut through all of this board, plus have some development. Oh, this is cute.
Pretty cute play.
If they lose control of the board, they will die to Bloodlust in a lot of situations. So that makes the Forbidden Healing a little bit less useful as a face heal in this matchup. So getting value out of it is actually pretty good.
I was going to say, that's just also really not how you lose the match. Realistically, it's not like you're playing Hunter and, you know, like the ability to just spot heal yourself for like 8 is going to make the big difference.
Yeah,
so,
a deck that sort of runs out of gas, that relies on just face damage, not a deck like Shaman, which does run out of gas, but as long as they have a small minion on board or a totem, they can get value out of Bloodlust, so healing is less useful. So cannot fully trade off the board unless they use Bloodlust in this case, which they won't.
Yeah, and that Bloodlust has actually been there for a very long time. And some of the turns that they've had to think over were certainly turns where the argument could be made for Bloodlust. So I have no doubt that Canada kind of has a read on what that card is. They have the opportunity to just go very wide on this board if they want to commit everything except the Bloodlust. But then they really do open themselves up to that quality base combo actually happening.
Time to go all in.
Yeah, just move the chips to the middle of the table. You got Bloodlust. That's how you're going to win this game.
They don't trade off anything. I guess they're thinking if there's a clear coming out, they'll have to clear off their own Drakes as well. And they want to just make sure they preserve as many minions on board so that next turn Bloodlust will be at its most impactful. Is there anything creative they can do? I don't think so. They can take some power off the board with Eldar Peacekeeper. They can take power off the board with Tarim. They could trade Tarim trade.
If you know the last card for Flame Lord is Bloodlust, does that change up how you evaluate Spike Ridge Steed in this turn? Just making something really big.
That's a possibility. And also Spike Ridge Steed makes the math a little bit weird because it also spawns a taunt afterwards that they have to get through. So you could go trade into Lord of the Arena with the healthier Primordial Drake and then Spike Ridge Steed and trade over the thing from below with the other. Now it looks like it's going to be the play. They're just trying to chop through as much of this board as possible.
Utilizing dragons.
Yes. As their choppers.
Those are big dragons. Just patrolling Flame Lord's board. The Stonehill Defender, again, it's going to create 2 cards here that fits pretty well into what he wants to do with the Bloodlust, but
Yeah.
Needs to start figuring something out because Canada is getting good value and just slowly mowing through the board. And, you know, as we see, New Zealand's pretty much just out of resources.
Yeah. Wow, they're actually going to use the Bloodlust to get through this turn. But this math doesn't line up well.
No, not at all.
They can put J-Claws in the Primordial Drake and then push. They have to trade in 2 minions to get through the Stegodon.
So would you rather put the J-Claws just into the 2/4 then, since, yeah, and then maybe put the Totem into the, yep.
Well, they preserve something. Wisp is a cool interaction too, because Wisp isn't going to end up being a free 3/3. In that case, I just like going face with both of these because it plays the best around a Sunkeeper Terran, and it still can't get through your Stonehill Defenders. This was really well played by New Zealand and Flame Lord. This is still a tough board for Canada to deal with. Another Bloodlust comes out, and all of a sudden, they're dead. Have not drawn Equality, have not drawn Consecration. All 4 of those cards are in the bottom 14 cards of the deck, and essentially the bottom half.
I mean, that said, they've hit, what, double Primordial Drake? I mean, they've had double Doomsayer. They've had...
No, they haven't had things.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unlucky.
No, you're... I mean, Primordial Drake is basically like a better Consecration in most phases of the game.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Unlucky.
Options.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the super intuitive answer is here. I don't...
Sunkeeper Terran puts more bottom.
I was going to say, Tarim is just worse. The Imp Master is low-key a big deal because it's just spawning 1/1s that make Tarim a worse play.
Yeah.
All right, second Bloodlust. Okay, Jade Lightning.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11.
Knocking on the door.
I see a Paladin door and I want to paint it dead.
No, you just... Sure. I was busy thinking about how, you know, Jade Lightning's good, but Bloodlust would be bringing out the chair.
The steel chair.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We were both thinking about memes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just got to yours first. Your power turn.
I could have edited that out.
Just cheating the curve.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
All right, well, the Jade Lightning here. Now, my question to you is, based on what you've seen Canada do up until this point, do you think there's value in just holding the Jade Lightning and saying, okay, this is going to be aimed face, say next turn, or are you still looking to actually use it to interact with the board?
I think you're chipping away at the board here and essentially putting more power because you traded Aya and then you... it looks like they are doing this. I mean, I guess this essentially does the same thing as playing Jade Lightning, but you also get the totem on the board and you're still pushing damage. I don't know. A 4/4 is hard to give up.
Ooh. Healing Totem, the GOAT.
It's keeping this bad boy alive.
Yeah.
Tyrion's drawn, but
This is
I'd rather see an equality or a consecration.
I was going to say, this is what I was talking about, though. When you think about how Control Paladin operates, it's not like Control Warrior variants where you have so many different things that clear the board. I mean, yeah. They've been very fortunate up till this point that the tools they have drawn have lined up well into, again, the Doomsayers lined up into fairly inoffensive boards. The Primordial Drakes lined up well. But a lot of times, like, look, let's just be honest. You just need a card called Equality, and you just need it to kill everything. You just need everything dead.
Sometimes you do.
There's a whole expansion coming up based on that.
What if everything died to equality? They cut off Ben Brode right before he was about to say that.
Knights of the Equal Throne. Ooh. You have to get rid of all the 1-drops, right? Yeah, you have to get rid of the 1-drops. It's only the,
I mean,
it's
they
just the
can.
imp.
So you attack 1/1 in, you attack the 2/2 in, you Jade Lightning, the Tyrion, you go all face, and then you evolve, right?
I think that is what I am arriving at.
So they could push 9 damage doing that, and then a Charger. If they get Archer Commander again, they win. If they get Corcoran Elite from the 3/3 Jade, they win. Wolf Rider from the 2/2 Jade, they're close to winning. Wolf Rider and then a Bluegill Warrior from the Totem, they win.
I'm enjoying this checklist. Keep going.
There's a lot of ways that they win. I mean, maybe they just don't even risk it and don't even go for the evolve here, but they have to smell weakness at this stage, right?
I mean, I doubt it because you're just sitting in your room. Like, why would you be smelling weakness?
Yeah.
Unless it's coming from you.
Here they go.
Leroy Jenkins. And, oh my
Archer
goodness.
Commander, what?
Wow.
I didn't even say Leroy. He didn't even make it on my checklist.
Wow.
What a finish.
Yeah, New Zealand's, look at the posture of Flame Lord there.
Giving it up. But
yeah,
they were lucky that they actually had enough time to attack with the Chargements there at the end, because New Zealand had roped out a few turns at stages during that game.
Yeah.
Stages where, like, you know, something could have changed right at the last second, especially the devolve turn early on. But they're able to get through it. I mean, it's likely that they win from that scenario anyway. But what if they don't draw any Divine Shields, Death Rattles, or Charge Minions there?
And that quality comes
and
up.
Quality comes out.
Yeah, they had the Pyromancer.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Nah, it's fine. Flame Lord just calmly is like, Argent Commander, Leroy
Jenkins. Yeah.
Holsters him. Yeah.
Yeah, but
tie series now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the score. 1-1, so now we essentially enter that best of 3. Keep an eye on who's in those ace matches as we have Purple and Slayer Max. So up next will be Hotform versus Pathra. Now, Hotform choosing to go with Rogue. As we know, Quest Rogue is not on the table, so unless Hotform kind of got a little bit of the insider read on Jade Rogue, I would absolutely expect this to be Miracle. And, you know, when you think about Miracle Rogue, the 2 major variants that I personally think of is Double Arcane Giant, Vile Spine Slayers, more kind of late game, with the potential for the Edwin just nuts in the beginning. Monsanto, though, actually created a version that was more anti-aggro tech, so it might be something we see here.
It could be, and I'm not actually sure. It's probably Jade Druid from the side of Pathra, just because Aggro Druid's fallen out. It lost one of its prey in the Quest Rogue, which is one of the reasons why it was brought a lot.
Yeah.
Also, you know, with a lot more people bringing Taunt Warrior as opposed to Pirate Warrior, that's another like little bit of prey that Aggro Druid lost, with Pirate Warrior becoming less popular, at least in global games. So I guess it'd be Jade Druid versus Miracle Rogue, and in that case, Miracle Rogue probably has a little bit of an edge.
It is. I played a lot of Miracle Rogue. I think it was, June.
Yeah.
I played that one up to Legend, and generally in my matchups with Jade Druid, I just won. You just get your Miracle turn. You get out the Arcane Giants. They can't really do anything with them. It's basically on Yogg. And you just get to your big points where you Vile Spine Slayer, the big threat. So obviously it comes down to what specific cards are in there, but if it is the slower version of Giants-based Miracle, then I would tend to imagine that is certainly favored for the Rogue.
You do have to draw threats early on in the game. You can lose to that deck pretty easily if you don't draw threats, because you just don't have many minions early on. So if you're spending too much time building,
Swashbuckler, Patches, Razor Petal,
and
Edwin.
All that stuff is cleaned up pretty easily. Yep. Edwin's a threat. You need to draw Edwin. You need to draw Arcane Giants with a bunch of spells early. But as soon as you drop a threat, you win, basically.
Yeah, we see the players getting ready. Hotform he's a big streamer if you don't know him. Just recently, he's been kind of hitting kind of a little bit more of that variety life. You can also see the guns. He works out.
Every Monday.
Yeah. He
And
tweets,
only Monday.
He tweets to let you know. He will not be streaming. He's improving himself.
It's Gym Time Monday.
Yeah. Pathra, also someone who streams. Pathra has also had a lot of success on ladder, though, hitting some of the very highest ranks. Now, she's not necessarily a deck builder like, say, Hotform is, but, she's someone who kind of waits to see what the established deck lists are as they arrive in a new set, and she pilots them very well.
Yeah, she's got a team behind her, too. If she gets into a situation where she doesn't feel comfortable with the play,
yep. As I said,
Slayer Max can be there to tell her to go face.
I've been very
Slay to the
impressed.
max.
Well, Ting Tong will probably also tell her to go face.
The Flame Lord as well. They
New
will all.
New Zealand's like, Path to be like, oh, do we trade? Like, yeah, nah. We just hit him in the face.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, nah.
I don't know if that's a New Zealand thing. That might be an Australia thing.
On the plus side, this is a team that is generally very much in agreement when they make plays, so there's not necessarily a lot of argument, but...
It's aggro.
Okay, aggro Druid versus the Miracle Rogue. Now, this can be done by the Miracle Rogue, but this is very difficult. And Aggro Druid really doesn't care whether you're a Miracle Rogue or a Quest Rogue. Aggro Druid's just doing Aggro Druid things.
Yeah, Miracle Rogue's matchup against the Aggro Druid is much better than Quest Rogue. Much better.
Yeah.
But it also has it is just as susceptible to being blown out by it as Quest Rogue. The only big thing about the Miracle Rogue is that it's got more early game tools to fight for the board.
Yeah, no, it just has so many more, to be honest. And honestly, my experience with this was that hallucination, like, you don't keep it, but if you get hallucination back in your opening hand, it's not bad because Druid actually does have decent removal to deal with the Aggro Druid. But we saw there, Hotform pitched the entire hand, so he did not keep Thalnos. Backstab, prep. Backstab, obviously really powerful. Prep, if you can get a Fan and Eyes, if you manage to get the Thalnos back, it's certainly very powerful.
Even Vilespine Slayer. Quest Rogue only has one way to deal with a 8/8, and that is to freeze it and keep it on the board.
Yeah. What if you just killed it?
What if you just killed it and put a 3/4 on the board?
Nice. There's the gadgets in too. So generally, despite Aggro Druid obviously being a very high-octane deck that wants to tend to go fast.
High octane!
Yeah, it's like Formula One racing.
This Sunday.
Druid. Power of the Wild. Yeah, that's generally how it goes. But there's going to come a point where towards the middle stages, once Living Mana is a factor, once the Hydra is a factor, having gadgets in and having the ability to just get a couple of cheap spells and just refill your hand is so valuable. Oh, she made a cat. That's a real cool cat.
It is. This is not a bad hand. You have Razor Petal Lasher to contest the 3/2, in theory. You have Prep plus Phantom Knives, which allows you to fit in other stuff in your turn.
Other stuff, things you could do.
Things you could play.
Yeah.
The things that you could play that turn.
Ooh. Okay, so
I think Tar Creeper here all day long.
now I'm blinded by Pink Bird, man. I'm just like, turn 3,
It's
Pink Bird.
It's contested on board.
Yeah.
Better play it anyway.
Trade down, get rid of that Lasher, go. You've already seen a backstab, man.
This Sunday, Gravedigger pilots Vicious Fledgling. Don't miss it.
Wind Fury, Wind Fury, Wind Fury. I mean, obviously the second Wind Furies aren't that impactful, but just yelling Wind Fury feels good.
Get your signed copy of a life-size replica of the pink Flappy Bird.
That's what we need to do. It's just, and I say this now because you work at Blizzard, so we can both have these, like, as Blizzard employees, we should probably encourage someone to make a Flappy Bird onesie. Totally buy it. All right, so it ended up just being the Tower Creeper. You were, the line you went is perfectly reasonable. A little boring, but perfectly reasonable.
Thank you. Ooh, this is not the best hallucination choices. You can theoretically prep out a Nourish, but you're foregoing a ton of development in order to do so.
There are situations where, if you got this, say, against a Jade Druid, prepping Nourish, not bad. Get to your resources, pretty decent. But at this point, preparation really needs to be used for the tempo aspect of it.
Yes.
And I cannot go with Nourish, but I mean, at this point, the only maybe okay option is Nourish.
You could nourish for prep nourish for ramp.
You're the druid now.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but it does get you closer to being able to get your power turns, and it essentially gives you a preparation for the rest of the game on minions and spells. A mini prep for the rest of the game on minions and spells, at least until turn 9 or 10. So I actually don't mind this at all. I think this is an incredibly strong play. Evolving Spores and Soul of the Forest really don't have any uses.
Yeah, I kind of got a little...
Ooh, that is good.
I think I got a little bit tunnel visioned in on the drawing cards aspect of it. When you look at the mana ramp, yeah. Right.
Well, this Vicious Fledgling will meet a pretty swift end from the Vile Spine Slayer next turn, most likely. But there's still a scary board nonetheless. Even if you Vile Spine Slayer that, you're essentially not removing anything else from the board unless you pick up, say, Eviscerate. You coin Eviscerate, Vile Spine Slayer, and Marka Yashraz is going to come down next turn.
Yeah, it's pretty big. You got it on the reload.
What to do?
This should only be pointed in one direction, in my opinion.
Like at One Direction, the band? TJ, I know it's not your type of music, but a lot of people enjoy One Direction. Not me.
I was trying to think of their hit song, but I can't. I just don't know.
I have no idea. Quit playing games with my heart.
Something beautiful, right?
Is that them? The You Don't Know You're Beautiful song?
Is that?
I don't know. I have XM radio, man. I just randomly listen to... Are you... Don't Google it. My goodness. All right, well, Pathra's still figuring out... Pathra's already gone out. She did not hit the Lasher. And now Hotform on 6 mana, taking the classic role of the Druid, and is actually the one who's ramped up the mana.
It is. Top in the charts in 2011.
High-level analysis there, Tej. Whoa.
Looks like they're taking the 4.
Okay.
But this is a lot of damage that they're staring. Whoa! Living mana! And that's a snap pick. So Canada needs either Blood Mage Thalnos or second Phantom Knives. Eviscerate can help them get through the board a little bit more. The Razor Petal can remove, the Dagger can remove, but a lot of times you either want to kill no living mana tokens or kill all the living mana tokens, because if you kill some of them, you still leave some power on the board and you're opening up mana for them to buff those up, whether it be Savage Roar, Power of the Wild, Mark of the Lotus. If you don't kill any of them, you leave the damage on board, but you restrict the mana usage next turn for the Druid to where they won't be able to do any more damage. So Prep picked up, but at this stage...
Well, I mean, if you can get a second... No, you wouldn't have enough mana to play the second. Yeah.
They need Blood Mage Thalnos right now. And Shaku is not Blood Mage Thalnos.
That is just true.
It is. And can they take enough power off the board here?
Okay, Phantom Knives here.
Coin!
Sherazin, no.
Still can pick up another coin. All right. Not going to get there. You're going to be able to trade 6 damage on the board. They're at 11. Or 4 damage on the board. They were able to remove enough. 4 plus 6, 10. They're 1 damage off. You may probably just go for it and swipe next turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the only play.
Roar 'em.
Rawr.
Rower?
Oh, sorry, that was a meek roar.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for like a savage roar, not a TJ roar. It's not even really a roar. It's more just kind of like a guttural noise.
That was a cough. I was clearing my throat.
Okay. Role player.
Time waits for no one.
What? So they're trying to think of any fringe case scenarios that they either die or lose to life gain.
Well, I was going to say, realistically, they should know that right now Hotform has no Druid cards.
Yeah. I mean, they could also trade in the Living Mana token and then hope that they get Hero Power plus swipe next turn, because they would have 6 mana if they traded one of the Living Power tokens. But then they lose to like a Taunt from Swashbuckler or Hallucination. They would also lose to Life Gain. I mean, at this point, Canada needs some help from outside of their deck. They need that Hallucination. They need that Swashbuckler to pick them up something that otherwise wouldn't be in their deck.
Okay,
so
Swashbuckler.
For 4 mana, they can get Feral,
Feral
Rage,
yep.
Earthen Scales.
Oh,
1 mana
no!
off the Moonglade Portal. That is brutal. They don't even have any preps left in their deck. They wouldn't have enough mana anyway.
Ugh.
They would have to Mimic Pod into Coin, then Coin into Swashbuckler or Hallucination, then
Or
Hallucination
they just
into
Mimic
Living
Pod
Scales.
into Mimic Pod.
Is there any life gain in here? There wasn't any life gain anyway.
Yeah.
I think I just saw Hotform mouth the words "feels bad."
I actually watched a fair bit of his stream, and Hotform, ever since we met him back in like 2015, again, second place at the World Championship.
Yeah.
This guy hates aggro decks. He just hates them conceptually. He hates losing to them. He's literally that one guy who just straight up skillless deck,
Yeah.
mindless aggro players.
So for him, it really does just feel bad for multiple reasons.
But he says that a lot on stream when he loses to aggro. It's just kind of he's not even like animated angry. It's just like, feels bad.
Yeah. So New Zealand, while they have played aggro Druid quite a few times over the course of global games, I think it is a little bit of a surprise to bring it this week, because most teams and players thought that Jade Druid was going to be in a better
The stock on it
spot.
just went through the roof, yeah.
But to be honest, going with aggro Druid is still a smart choice. It still preys on these decks. Jade Druid really just got one deck out of the way that preys on it.
Yep.
So it really isn't in like a much better spot in Conquest. So I like the choice by them. I think they caught Canada off guard, and they take a win because of it.
Yeah, now New Zealand 1 game away from the top 8, and then from there, 1 series to the round of 4, the live LAN finals taking place later this year. So, and this is huge for New Zealand. There were some teams who all throughout this were kind of like, yeah, we're going to win. It's fine. We're going to get there. New Zealand is a team that with every single win has celebrated, right? I was talking to them regularly. They want this. They want the pride for New Zealand. They want to show everyone just how powerful that country is when it comes to Hearthstone. So these are players who are really emotionally invested in this tournament. So 1 game away, and we see Sidonia, who is at DreamHack Valencia.
It is pushing 4 a.m., I believe, in Spain at the moment. 3 or 4 a.m., I think. It is quite late. Maybe even later. It's 6 a.m. now.
Yep.
Wow.
Sidonia was like, you guys were supposed to 3-0.
Yeah. That's why they put him in the 4th spot, because they're like, please 3-0 so I can't play. But in reality, maybe they should have put him in the 1st slot so they just get his match out of the way.
Well,
but
knowing Sidonia, my guess is he was awake anyway, because he
just played a full day of Swiss.
I get that, but he's the sort of person who wants to support the team.
Yeah.
Again, if this was just like everyone played one after the other, but this is by committee.
Yeah.
And what I know of Sidonia is that he wants to be there to kind of lead his team.
You know what? I wonder what time it is in New Zealand.
I don't know. Ting Tong just seems to have some pretty decent sun blockers going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ting Tong, we had the chance to talk to him a couple weeks back. Ting Tong's a very animated character. He's very excitable. Like I said, like the rest of the team, really wants to win for New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
So been a pleasure to talk to him and kind of get to know him. He was one of the personalities from New Zealand that we knew very little about coming into this. So he and the rest of the guys, it's been fun to get to know them.
Yeah, it's 4 p.m. in New Zealand.
Do you think he can take the pressure? It's 4 p.m. He probably just woke up knowing Ting Tong.
It's just funny because it looks like it's like really late in both those places because he just has black curtains that block out the sun and no light.
No, he just has science.
Yeah, but the funny thing about, a lot of Asia Pacific in general is they have a lot of strong players, but they don't have any place to prove that.
Yeah.
And we've seen this year now going to a system in Asia Pacific where it's not region-based within Asia Pacific. It's Asia Pacific as a whole putting their strongest contenders forward. That we've seen Asia Pacific have more success.
Yeah.
Especially in HCT, we saw 2 players from Australia and New Zealand make it into the quarterfinals of the of the Spring Championship just recently, Mage and Cincinnati.
Yeah, when
from New Zealand and Australia, respectively.
I was gonna say, when we were casting the Hearthstone Championship Tour last year, when we were just talking about, in small talk between casters, kind of ranking the regions, Asia Pacific last year was just frankly firmly seated as the last region.
Yeah.
And it's clear that they've been making progress now that they have switched to that system where they're all kind of working at the same place. Part of the issue Asia Pacific also has is geographically, they don't have the easiest way to get to each other and practice and have those live events. You obviously have the Taiwan majors, the Singapore majors. They do exist, but they're not necessarily as frequent as I'm sure all of those players would like.
Yeah, last year I believe there was 3 Southeast Asian majors throughout the whole year.
Yep.
And those were the only majors in the whole country, outside of domestic ones in Korea with OGN at the beginning of the year. Whereas Europe and the United States had One Nation of Gamers, they had DreamHacks.
Yep.
They had opens, throughout the year within the country, and it's just really hard to sort of replicate that there. And also, speaking of ANZ, Australia, New Zealand as a region specifically, in 2016, they sent 1 representative to each championship for Asia Pacific. To each individual Asia Pacific championship, they sent 1 player. So there was only 1 player that even had the potential from both of those countries to go through. It was a very difficult system to qualify through. And I think now that's why we're seeing more from those 2 countries, is because they have bigger opportunities.
Yeah, you see players like Mage, like Citizen Napa emerge onto the global competitive stage. So it has been a great story for Australia, New Zealand.
All right, but this is a tough matchup for Ting Tong. Even with a good start like that one, the Evolved Shaman can chew through early boards pretty nicely, and they also have 3 of the cards that you'd love to see in this matchup: Maelstrom Portal, Bloodsoul Corsair, and Firefly. They're only missing the Jade Claws to complete the full package.
Yeah, I was going to say, even harkening back to when Aggro Shaman was super popular prior to some of the nerfs that came through for them, and then also Year of the Mammoth, Maelstrom Portal was when you knew you were playing against Pirate Warrior, or if you thought you were, Maelstrom Portal was something you could aggressively mulligan into, because if the Pirate Warrior does get that really nuts opening start with the N'Zoth first mate into the patches, you have a pretty even way to neutralize it, which is something a lot of classes actually lack.
Yeah. They can go Coin Maelstrom Portal into Bloodsoul Corsair Firefly.
Yeah. Yeah, if they don't want to do that, they have flexibility on turn 2, right? They have that Primal Fin Totem.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ways they can go, but just getting the early pressure off the board and saying, okay, you're going to have to reload the board with minions. That feels really good. Okay, so...
Oh, that is...
Is that... That's bad. That is bad.
That is bad.
That is bad.
That is very bad.
Well, I was just thinking with the situation on the board, maybe you think like, okay, this is not as bad.
This matchup is a lot about early board tempo.
Well, they can...
And by not being... they can trade
trade
it.
it. They can trade it in.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, they just can. Trade it in. You're still on that same line we talked about earlier. The difference is that you put 2 damage into the Bloodsoul.
Yeah. There could have... I mean, there could have been a pretty big punish here. Is like if they didn't have Bloodsoul Corsair,
Or
and
if
they
they-
only had Primal Fin Totem,
Yeah.
they would have had to deal 2 damage to the Bloodsoul Corsair.
Sure.
And then... Or sorry, to the Bloodsoul Raider, and then just not kill it.
You know, it's worth noting here that Ting Tong could have also just played down the Fiery War Axe and then not allowed something to be traded into the Hive Queen just to stunt development. So, yeah, pretty interesting from the get-go, this one. Have a little pirate on pirate crime. Patches sweeps the leg on poor Bloodsoul Raider.
Blue potato.
Nope, not. Refuse to engage. I'm giving you the old Frodan stare.
And now you see why this matchup is tough, because they play 2 minions a turn that can contest your bad boy. And you have the option of playing that minion or playing Fire War Axe and killing a 1/2.
Yeah, plus South Sea Captain, in general, kind of sucks if there aren't other pirates.
True.
He's looking to party, man. Partying alone, sad. That is the actual visual graphic of what it's like to party alone versus partying with your friends.
I mean, he's got his party shirt on. I wonder if we
Well-
can pull up South Sea Captain in the card drawer in order to get a closer look at his party shirt.
Let's take a chance to get to better know South Sea Captain. Avast, matey. Welcome to my party.
It is only slightly larger, but definitely, as you can see, a party shirt.
I will remember that for upcoming parties.
That he's shirtless and only wearing sleeves. I can't quite tell. But that would be weird. So common sense leads me to believe that
It's
it is
probably
in
a
fact a
shirt.
full shirt.
It's probably just a full shirt.
But in talking about Canada's turn here, they actually can't get through the South Sea Captain unless they devolve. So we might be seeing an evolve turn from them. They're actually going to go wide on the board here.
Yeah, I like this. This backs up the evolve on the coming turn. The only thing that worries me is you are putting a lot of minions on the board that could become Doomsayers if you choose to go the evolve route.
Yeah, it's still a pretty low chance. Even if you have
to do it, but it's like it's always like in the back of my head, like, oh, these could all be Doomsayers.
Yeah, it's still, even if you have a full board, 7 minions that all evolve into 2-drops, it is a less than 10% chance to get a Doomsayer.
Until it happens to you, and then it's a 100% chance.
Well played. I got nothing.
Still working on that math thing.
It's 50-50. Either it happens or it doesn't.
There you go.
I'm Rob, and I think I'm just so smart.
I do think I'm pretty smart. I read a lot of books.
I've actually seen you read a book.
They're mostly just fantasy novels, though. They don't teach me anything.
In fact, I saw Rob reading a book on our bus back to the airport from China, and I went over his shoulder and I looked, and the book was hollow. And in the middle, he was staring at a picture of Hearthstone cards. Not even playing Hearthstone. He just had a hole cut out of his book, and in the middle was just a stack of printed out pictures of Hearthstone art.
That's why I stacked up my suitcases. I was hoping you wouldn't see. But look at this. Ting Tong just saying, okay, you know what? I'm not going to win this board. I'm done with the board plan.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bake a big old X.
Yeah. And, I mean, if the board fills up, I think that Sidonia might feel like he needs to trade in some minions here. Because it could get to the point where Sidonia doesn't roll a Taunt Totem, and then his board fills up with Primal Fins, and he can't play a Taunt minion, and Ting Tong gives him nothing to trade into.
And then he evolves them, and they're all Doomsayer.
That'd actually probably be better than keeping a board full of 1/1s without Bloodlust against Pirate Warrior. I mean, this is just sort of how you have to win. You rarely win this matchup by trading on board unless you know that you can win the value battle. And with a Heroic Strike in hand and double upgrade, Ting Tong is not winning the value battle. He currently has 19 damage in hand alone over 3 turns. And I really like trading in a minion here.
Yeah.
Even though it just makes the math off, you don't need 5 damage to kill a 3 damage minion. You just need to make room on your board. And now you can...
Goodness.
You're only giving him a 1/1. I think you just get...
Yo, I was going to say, do it now.
And he up.
Yap those fools.
And now, he's got lethal next turn. Should have Taunt not come out. Ting Tong in New Zealand made the decision.
Okay, that is...
He still... Well, I guess Stonehill Defender gets another Taunt. He needs to be presented with an option for a Taunt that costs 6 mana or less.
What to do?
I think you double trade and then evolve and then Stonehill Defender. Because you don't want your Primal Totem making another minion. I don't know. I really like attacking in, evolving, and then Stonehill Defender.
That looks like exactly what Sidonia's going for here.
I think it's just better. You have a chance for multiple taunts. If things go wrong, the only thing that punishes it...
Lightwell.
And... Thing from below. That's a taunt that costs 6 mana or less.
This was literally me the other day. I rolled a Huffer, and my opponent was at 1 health. I posted this on Twitter, and I'm just like, trying to click the face. How do you get to the face? You can't.
You can't.
You got to deal with that Stonehill Defender.
And now, let's see, Canada they only have 8 power on board. But Lightwell is going to make things weird.
The way you said that made things weird.
You're welcome. So, if they get through this taunt, and then they draw... Nope, they wouldn't be able to. They'd have to draw exactly Arcanite Reaper into something else that deals 4 damage on the following turn in order to be able to get through the 2 ticks of light while they're going to come through. And I don't think they have enough health in order to do so. That does deal 4 damage. So they attack into Thing from below. They armor up. They go up to 11. There's not quite 11 damage on board. They Cork on Elite to face. And then next turn, hope that double Heroic Strike plus something else that deals damage.
Again, realizing they just need this win, and then they go to the round of 8.
This very win.
The kitty gloves are coming off.
They've been off for a while.
You might not even have brought them with you.
Kitty gloves aren't even a thing that exists.
I mean, you could buy them.
I wonder.
But then they're just small adult gloves. Because kids don't wear gloves.
Well, if it's cold. I guess those are mittens. All right, you win this round.
I must choose.
Masterful. Not really any other option. And then they're staring at 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. So Jade Claws, Bloodlust, Jade Lightning.
Nah, he's
No
like,
way.
Nah, he's like, nah.
You take damage off board in this situation. No way.
No.
But they're going back up to 10. And another thing from below.
I think we're going to game 5, Teach.
I think we just might be. They can even draw if they draw Bloodlust. Still is lethal. Jade Lightning, does that do it? They have spell damage. 5, 6, plus 5 is 11. That does it.
You know, I just said we're going to a team 5. I'm going to game 5. I called it.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Well
My predictive
done.
powers.
And Ting Tong saw the victory. It was so close. He could almost reach out and grab the Shaman's face in order to get that victory. But the Stonehill defender definitely put a wrench in that plan. And we're going to a game 5, as Rob had mentioned. I was going to say predicted. but it was more-
Robstradamus. Let Robstradamus predict your games. But yeah, there was a situation where the identification early on by Ting Tong to say, okay, there's no way I ever win this on the board. I got to make a big axe. I got to not see taunts. I just don't see those. Yeah.
All
and
right,
he went for it.
Robstradamus.
All right.
Have to rub the magic. No, they cut right as I rubbed Rob's head.
Haha, my dignity, what small bit of it is left, remains intact.
Oh, man. I was going to rub Rob's head and call him a genie, but didn't quite work out.
Teach, I'm a genie in a bottle.
Misplaced.
That's a different thing. Anyway, Mage versus Paladin. So it's going to come down to Purple and Slayer Max. Slayer Max began the series. He's going to put an end to it. Looking for that big New Zealand win, though.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird, considering they had very similar choices in game 1, but went with different things. Maybe they were trying to conceal information. If they got to the ace match, they knew they'd play something else, but still should be a good match. Again, depends on the archetypes.
Sure.
But here they are getting ready. Purple rubbing his hands. He's like, we got this, boys. Slayer Max, he just looks pretty zen. Looks pretty calm.
I was going to say, you look at the picture behind Slayer Max, that also, yeah. He's like Namaste. Namaste, Hearthstone.
Rocking the lava lamp bed covers.
You know what? Slayer Max looks like a cool guy. I think I would just objectively hang out with him.
Yeah.
I've hung out with Purple before. Purple's fun to hang out with. You know, he's a little high energy at times. Slayer Max just looks really chill.
He does.
Yeah. Looks like Drew Simmons from the PR team, actually.
He does.
Yeah.
I would go and visit famous Lord of the Rings filming sites with him.
You wouldn't just go to visit him, though?
No, I would just go there, and if he was there, I wouldn't.
But you're not specifically flying out to hang out with him.
No, I would just not be
I would hang out with you
upset
for,
if
Slayer Max.
he was there while I was there.
Is there like a long list of people who upset you if they're there?
Yeah, there would be.
Okay. Well, let's sync up offline. All right, we see here though Slayer Max has some things you don't always see these days in Murloc Paladin, Finja specifically. And then over on the side of Canada appears to be Freeze Mage based on that Blizzard.
Yeah. We'll see what kind of Freeze Mage it is. There's been a Freeze Mage list floating around that is sort of like a little bit of a hybrid. I think the first iteration was made by a player named Ike. who's one of our practice partners of Zalay.
I was gonna say, I know Ike. I watch Zalaya's stream. Ike's a good guy.
He is, and they both finished in the top 50 with that list last season, with Zalay finishing, I believe, in top 10. I look at those lists a lot, so some of them mixed together, but definitely a solid list. And it looks like it is that list, because there's a Firelands portal. We're just missing a Mana Worm. There's Mana Worms in that deck, too.
All right, so what do you think here of Tide Caller coin into Vile Inquisitor? It puts power on the board early on, and then you're just kind of hoping you draw into Rockpool Hunter. But the other consideration is, do you maybe want to look into a world where you're coining out Megasaur?
Yeah, that's tough. Now, you do have a turn 2 play with hero power, which is actually reasonable if you have a Murloc Tidecaller on board.
Yep.
But then you have that big old gap in that turn 3. You're likely to pick something up because much of the deck is a pretty low curve. Rockpool Hunter, Murloc War Leader, another one of the one-drop Murlocs, Hydrologist plus Secret, Rowling Blade. There's a ton. But when everything is on the line for your global games country's life, do you risk it for the biscuit?
Well, I mean, I always just go, I'm like, yeah, let's just put the most things on the board, see what happens. Let's dance. I mean, the other thing you have to consider is you don't know what mageless this is, so you're kind of wondering, like, okay, how does this play line up in 2 different mage decks?
But Rob, Guilty Feet have no rhythm.
Excuse me.
I don't even get that reference. What's that from? Is it like Dirty Dancing?
Close.
Is it Careless Whispers?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I was like, yeah. Okay. Hey, look, you drew a Murloc on 2. You're good at the game.
But he still has Guilty Feet.
Well, he's not dancing right now. It's like less of an issue. I mean, after he wins, maybe he dances, but...
You said, let's dance, when you said put all the minions on board.
Well, it's not an actual, like, literal let's dance. It's a figurative let's dance.
Same with his Guilty Feet. Feet cannot be guilty by a literal sense.
But if you're, like, step on a flower, right? Like, your feet are of guilty stepping...
You're guilty.
No, it's just your feet.
I wonder.
Hydrologist seems like a pretty good play here.
I like Hydrologist.
Just put all the minions on the board you want. Let's dance. Back to square one.
Quickly.
I mean, to be honest, Canada just doesn't really have much in the ways of contesting this.
Yeah, they
anyway,
actually
so
really can't dance early on.
No. Not much time left. They're still going to decide on the secret. Probably Getaway Kodo. Actually, Eye for an Eye does have a lot of uses against Freeze Mage. They don't know what kind of mage it is yet, so maybe that's why they take Noble Sacrifice. But Noble Sacrifice has the least amount of uses in Freeze Mage because they play very little minions. And oftentimes they never win by contesting your minions with minions or by winning the game with minions.
I don't really like Noble Sacrifice if you then make that trade. I mean, you couldn't play the Noble Sacrifice, sure, but
Yeah.
It's like a situation where, to your point, I don't really know where Noble Sacrifice shines here, whereas I think Getaway Kodo, just on paper, is just the most consistent secret you're going to get.
Yeah.
An Eye for an Eye, I like it later on in the game if that's where the game is gone. Yeah. Slayer Max kind of went Slayer Min there. Never traded. You know, I usually say he's all killer, no filler, but he's a little filler here.
That was a little bit of filler.
Yeah. All right, well...
Purple draw in pretty poorly, and this is a nod towards Getaway Kodo / Redemption.
Ooh. Ooh.
This is going to be a pretty sick curve. 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, New Zealand's just going to hope to ride it here. Ride it all the way to the round of 8. Okay, so I like Living Spores because you have Tarum.
Yes.
Wind Fury, if you had bigger attack, sure,
Wind
but you're
Fury
not
just
really...
pushes an extra 3 damage right now, whereas Living Spores, if your board gets removed, has the potential to push 4 extra damage.
Yeah.
And just keep your board pretty resilient to AoE effects. So
CTHI can be taught. Even though Wind Fury is generally great, say on like Pinkbird, I objectively evaluated that situation and came to the conclusion that these spores represented more damage. That's just more face damage.
Well done, Rob.
Thank you.
Rob,
Ever since you joined Blizzard, I've
Rob
learned.
casts Evolve on himself.
I'm pretty sure I would just evolve into 25-year-old me, which was just strictly better.
Wouldn't you need to devolve to go backwards?
Time is a weird thing. All right. What is not a weird thing is playing Finja here. Getting it going, and then if something comes down, you have that Spike Ridge Steed, the ability to buff it up next turn. Yeah. Ooh, Slayer Max, the pressure's getting to him. You actually see that is some sweat. He's sweating it.
No, just part of his shirt is a slightly darker blue than the rest of it.
It's just the fashion in New Zealand. It's specifically that style so that you don't see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vine Cleaver actually seems pretty good in Freeze Mage just because it's 12 damage over 3 turns.
Yeah, and generally what the Freeze Mage is doing is just freezing out the board. It's the same reason why I say Pirate Warrior. Generally the weapons are just so good against Mage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damage from hand. It's what it's all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. Did that backwards.
Honestly, the highlight of my day will be going back and watching this VOD tomorrow and just seeing you say things like that. Just the what face spam. Like, what is actually going on here? Oh, so good. Well, the Acolyte does come down. Can just go ahead and choose to ping it. Although, he's looking at a situation in the next few turns where, does the Ice Block play ever get better?
You need to develop it at some point.
Yeah.
I think the question there is, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, digging for a card seems good given the quality of your hand. But yeah, I think if you are looking to play the Ice Block, this is probably the turn. You know, next turn you want to set yourself up to be able to fire Lens Portal if there's something intuitive.
I wonder.
So Sunkeeper Tarim could be a possibility. It would guarantee the Acolyte of Pain only gets 1 draw. Spike Ridge Steed as well would do that. Also, if you Sunkeeper Tarim and you Finja into, or one of the Murloc, well, I guess it would be Finja into the Acolyte of Pain and pull out a Murloc War Leader. Of course, you know, like most pull effects from Finja, the buff happens retroactively, so you'll get the health and your Finja will not die.
I definitely like the Steed here more and just save the Tarim for, if your board gets wiped, then you have the spores and you just go from there. The Steed you hit the Acolyte.
Yeah.
Make sure it's just 1 draw. See what you pull.
The Sunkeeper Tarim lets you push more damage this turn,
Sure.
but your Finja may not stick around if you don't pull a War Leader. Let's see.
Bye, Finja. Yeah, so you are pushing more damage. Yeah. I think the play I suggested, if you think this is going to go longer, is more value-oriented, but yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Violence Portal's pretty cool. Yeah, Purple is very unhappy about these draws here. He's drawing all his burn and big stuff and none of the removal.
What to do?
Yeah, and he's a ways out from really enacting this burn in any meaningful capacity.
No Blizzard, no Doomsayer, no secrets that buy time like Ice Barrier. So really, and what do you even Firelance Portal here? The 2 Murlocs that are the most threatening have Death Rattles where they're just going to bring back additional power. He has to Firelance Portal the Rock Pool Hunter, take 2 power off the board. And now this is going to be a block pop.
Yep.
At 1. 9, you attack him with the Vine Cleaver, put him down to 1, and then the final attack him with the Evolving Inquisitor. Canada may just be out of options. And Purple is feeling the stress right now. I would be too.
I mean, look, Slayer Max's curve, we talked about at the very beginning, was extremely gracious. I mean, he rode that up all the way to 6, all the way to 7, has the Vine Cleaver.
Yeah, did miss the turn 3. It was a Hero Power Secret.
Oh, Mana Worm. Oof.
Yikes.
That is going to do it, though.
Yes, it is. And New Zealand takes the series. Slayer Max is pumped.
He's getting up, he's dancing.
He's going to go play the guitar.
He's not dancing. No, but seriously, the miracle run for New Zealand continues. Again, I mentioned it earlier. New Zealand has not lost a series of Hearthstone in the Global Games since May 4th.
That is scary for any team that's going to go up against them for the remainder of Global Games.
And next up is going to be USA.
USA, that in the round of 8 next week is going to be a prime match to watch.
We get to cast that.
Yay!
Yeah.
I didn't want to make too loud of a noise.
All right, well, that was a really disappointing high five. I'll just throw it out there. Much less disappointing, though, is New Zealand. Now, Canada was my pick to win it all. They obviously made it to the round of 16. When they go back and look at this, I'm not really sure where they should begin. It's one of those situations where, as I said, they struggled.
Yeah.
They struggled mightily in Stage 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games, and they came in here and were obviously knocked out by New Zealand. But, yeah, one thing that stands out to me is some of the deck choices, I think, overall, maybe necessarily weren't what was best for an overall cohesive strategy. It kind of felt like at times individual players had their styles they liked, and they kind of stuck to those, whereas New Zealand, like, everyone's been willing to pass the ball, do a bunch of different things. Nobody has stuck to one thing they say, like, this has to be my style.
Yeah, we've seen a different player play Aggro Druid every single week. It feels like it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But yeah, New Zealand just on fire. It feels like they can't lose right now. So
they could just literally win the Hearthstone Global Games, a team that, like Mexico, no one said coming into this, that's the team that's going to win it all. That's crazy. It's been one of the cooler things about Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, one of the few countries left in the top 8 that, at the very beginning weren't in a conversation for one of the best Hearthstone countries in the world. But definitely now that they've made it there, definitely have to at least be considered. And there's the final score with Slayer Max taking the ace match.
Yeah,
over
lost in
Purple.
the first game of the series, but one where it counted, that all-important ace match. So, as we said, New Zealand's miracle run continues. They're going to have the opportunity to play against the US of A, the boys in red, white, and blue next
They're
week.
also in red, white, and blue.
I mean, look, color scheme-wise, there's a trend. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket, though, as we head into next week. Top 8 is going to be China taking on Czech Republic, United States taking on New Zealand. And as we head to the lower part of the bracket here in top 8, Mexico versus South Korea. That's going to be a good one. Really looking forward to, because this is a very legitimate challenge for Mexico at this point. And then Ukraine versus the Netherlands. And again, the Netherlands are coming off an absolute brutal series where they just barely managed to claw their way out of it. Brazil navigated it really well. So these are all going to be amazing series.
Yeah, and again, you see basically 6 of those 8 countries were in the conversation for best country in the world in Hearthstone at the beginning of the competition. And then Mexico and New Zealand have pretty much earned their spot there through hard work throughout, and definitely just keep impressing us week after week. Mexico early on with piloting some of the tougher decks with Jade Shaman being one of their key decks for victories, and then New Zealand just not losing a match in months is crazy to see to me. So I don't think we could have asked for a better story going into the top 8. And, I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks when we're going to finally solidify the top 4 that are moving on to that live finals.
Yeah, going into the round of 8, I do want to point out, you come into this, and in most formats, you're playing just a 1v1 game of Hearthstone. You bring a certain number of decks. It's usually Conquest or Last Hero Standing. To this particular tournament, the format required you to, if you wanted to be successful at the highest levels, go above and beyond. You had to not just figure out the way the meta worked, the decks you were bringing, you had to figure out how to adequately navigate the Hearthstone Global Games format, and those are the teams we're seeing succeed, right? We've seen Czech Republic with their innovative deck building. We've seen New Zealand with the team-first mentality and the ability to share responsibilities and play things maybe they're not as comfortable with. So I like what we're seeing thus far. Can't wait for the round of 8. TJ, you'll be joining me again next week. We're going to send it off from the NA office in a grand style. But yeah, is there anything you want to say before we swing out of here, Tej?
No, man, it's been enjoyable as always. It's been a while since we cast together, and it was everything that I could have ever dreamed of. And make sure you guys tune in next week, because out of all of the weeks of global games that we had, all 13 of them so far, next week's going to be the big one. So make sure you guys are there.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us here at the ESL Burbank Studios in sunny California. We're going to swing on out of here. Have a good night.